What's up, everybody? This is Ron Sparksman. No, I'm just kidding. That's a little inside joke with our guest today. We have Adrian Mauduit. Yeah, that's he's an amazing astrophotographer, documentarian, science communicator, and educator, and he does some really incredible things. And we're going to get to that in just a minute. But first, welcome. We're glad to have you on the show today, Adrian.
Thank you so much for having me, Ron, and hi to everyone. It's a pleasure, really.
So let's get started with probably my favorite question I ever ask anybody is, what first inspired you to fall in love with space and science?
Oh man, so I guess I've always been inspired by science. I've always been, outside taking a look at insects or birds, or always been inspired and interested in nature, actually. So I was always, as a kid, I was always outside and trying to do experiments and bringing stuff to my teachers. And so at first I was more interested in life sciences, and little by little I was also interested in space and also cosmos and the stars. But I guess it came later in life, after my teenage years, actually. So, yeah.
Very nice. And so what inspired you to first pick up a camera? Because, that's the basics of your art and what you do now. You're an incredible photographer. Some people pick up a camera and put it back down. Some people pick it up and changes their lives. And that's obviously what it did for you. So can you tell us a little bit about how that all began?
Yeah. Actually, that's funny you mentioned that, because I was given a camera. Actually, my grandpa gave me a camera when I was a kid, actually. 8 years old or something. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of old, one of those old argentic cameras where you had to develop yourself the film and mm-hmm. Those old cameras before digital cameras. And so I picked it up and I was taking pictures outside of whatever came by, birds or plants or but in my teenage years, you have other things to do, and your interests slightly shift.
Mm-hmm,
so
sure.
I kind of put down the camera. I still have it, but I kind of put it down for a couple of years. And it was not until probably 5 years ago that I picked it up again, to tell you that this action of actually putting it down and thinking, okay, I tried it and it wasn't really good, or and then picked it up again afterwards. And I'll probably explain to you later why I picked it up again.
So astrophotography, you took it from regular photography to the night skies, and it is it's impressive, the work that you do. So how did astrophotography come into play for you? What did you say, you know what, especially for somebody that put the camera down and now you picked it back up, and you've done a whole lot in 5 years. So what inspired you to share all with the night sky, the cosmos, the auroras with us?
So as I explained to you earlier, I've always been interested in science and a bit of space, but not that much at that time. Mm-hmm. And when I was employed as a teacher 5 years ago in Denmark, mm-hmm. I started teaching physics and biology also, but mostly physics and chemistry.
Excellent.
And one of my colleagues at the time said to me, you know what? You can see the Aurora Borealis from Denmark? And, I was like, you must be joking, because, when you think Aurora Borealis, you think Norway, Iceland, mm-hmm. Yeah. Alaska, Denmark is too much south, or so... And so said, you don't trust me, so go to the beach and see for yourself. And one day he told me, okay, tonight's going to be the night, so go and look for yourself. So I did, and man, I was so amazed by this flash of light I had never seen before. It's just, mm-hmm. I mean, that was the first experience of Aurora Borealis, and man, it wasn't high up in the sky, but it was on the horizon. It came as a flash, and I got hooked instantly. I'm not gonna lie, I just got hooked. And then so the day after, I at school, I said, hey, you know what? I was super excited. I was on the beach all night, and I saw the aurora. I was blown away So I actually, from there point on, I decided to actually try to record it for the first time. So I started as with those startup kits on Amazon that you can buy, those pretty cheap cameras, and the startup kit, and then that's what little by little got me into astrophotography.
And I'm going to say I'm pretty excited about it because my next big trip, next planned big trip, you never know, sometimes things come up before then, out of the country is going to be at the end of this year, Christmas time into the new year, is to go and hit Norway and hit Iceland and hit that part of the world while the auroras are out, because it's something I've yet to experience. And I've seen a great deal of your work and our friends at Project PoSSUM. I've seen what they've done with it, and it looks like it is one of those life-changing experiences. It's certainly on my bucket list, so I can't wait. So I can see how that can inspire your astrophotography, and you talked a little bit about it. That's how it began. So for people that don't really understand it, can you tell us a bit about what goes into like the basics of astrophotography? And then we'll dive into the extremes of it a little bit later, because man, you guys put in professional. There's a difference between amateur and professional. Professionals put in so much more, and we're going to get to that too. But for an amateur person that's is really interested in it, what goes into doing what you do?
So I guess from an amateur point of view, you would need you could start with a basic camera, actually any source of camera, whether it's a compact camera. I, of course, recommend more of DSLR or mirrorless camera. But any kind of cameras can do the trick for starters. And then like a bright lens and a tripod, and you should be set to start, actually. But I guess from a beginner's point of view, you would need a lot of patience and a lot of trying to get to know your camera. Also get outside a lot and shoot, make mistakes, learn from those mistakes, try to watch tutorials on YouTube or on other platforms and try to learn. There's no secrets. I mean, you just got to get outside and try your best, try all the time, as much as possible.
It sounds very similar to astronomy. It's basically, you buy a camera, you buy a telescope, go out, take a telescope, take it out, get some coffee, get a couple different changes, some layers of clothes just in case it gets cold, because cold skies are the best.
That's it.
And, get out there and just sit and just play around with it and look through it, and then start to learn what types of telescopes work best for you. So I love that of course it would be in that similar area, and it's very intriguing because what you guys do really takes some length of time, and you have a specialty which is called Astrolapse, and it was a term that I hadn't heard of before I met you. So can you tell us what that is, and how does that differ from regular astrophotography?
Well, it's actually, I think I heard the term Astrolapse, but I'm not too sure. I might have made that up, actually. I'm not sure. Okay. So that's a contraction between astrophotography or astronomy and time lapse. So it's making a time lapse of the night sky, basically. That's what it is. And actually, a lot of people do. When you do astrophotography, at some point, you might want to take several pictures and put them back to back to create a time lapse. A lot of people, actually amateurs or professionals, try this technique of shooting the night sky. So instead of recording live, because you don't have enough light at night, you want to take picture so you get more light, and then you put them back to back to create a film. And so that's what differs from regular astrophotography, I guess. But as you mentioned, as you pointed out, it actually takes a lot of time, as you can imagine, because so typical recording with a camera, just put the camera on the tripod, press record, and you're good to go. But perhaps there's a great deal of preparation, planning your shot, actually shooting, setting your camera right, and then post-production. There's actually tremendous, from editing your single pictures to applying all the settings to the pictures, and also assemble the pictures. I mean, it's just and almost an
Patience.
endless workflow.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
requires a lot of
Yeah,
patience.
a lot of patience.
Yeah, man.
Well, I think you've got something that's intriguing. I think that's different from most people that I've met that are astrophotographers. Is that your passion started out with the aurora borealis,
Hmm.
and now you shoot the night sky. That like the galaxies and the stars and stuff. What inspired you to go from like, all right, I'm out here shooting the aurora borealis? Was it just were you out there some nights and it didn't show up, and you were just, well, man, this is an amazing sky, or how did that kind of come about?
And that's funny you mentioned, because no, maybe a week later, I got the kit, the camera kit I talked to you about. I also booked a one of those long lenses
Mhm.
to. I was hoping to get like planets, or so instead of buying a telescope, I just bought a longer lens to get one of those close-up shots. And the second thing I actually shot was Jupiter. And man, I mean, when you first take
Mhm.
your first picture of a celestial object, and you get you get this ridiculous dot on the picture, but as you zoom in, you start seeing those rings and those different colors, those different gas layers on Jupiter, and it just changing your world. It just
Mhm.
rocks your whole world, man. It's just I can't really explain it, and until you have
It's what something
experience
you got to do.
yourself.
It's
But
for sure. I think that probably most people's favorite, like, yeah, that's a big one that I understand from most people in astrophotography, and in a similar style is the first time you show Saturn to somebody in a telescope. Like that seems to be the one thing. Like, okay, you see Mars, and that's cool. Like I can tell
yeah,
that it's Mars, and I can tell it's another planet. But it's when you look through a telescope that only costs a couple $100 that
yeah,
you see the rings of Saturn around the planet, and people
that's
are
it.
just their jaw drops. And I think it's the same thing. The first time you
That's
have
it.
the ability to take a a giant lens and you're looking into the sky and you look at Jupiter and you can really see Jupiter. You can see the Galilean moons, and it doesn't really take a whole lot of equipment to be able to do that. And it that for you that kind of changed it when that kind of added that to the list of things you want to do, huh?
Exactly. And somewhat, even though you don't have the means to buy like those expensive telescopes,
Mhm.
in a way, it's also the experience. At least for myself, was rediscovering all by yourself, as if you were like an ancient astronomer.
Uh-huh.
When Galileo,
Mhm.
you're back at the edge, back in time, and you're with your camera sitting in your backyard and doing your own thing, taking your own picture. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just an experience that is yours. I mean, and it puts you back to earth, puts you back where you are, and it is just humbling, really humbling experience.
And you've then jumped from doing that to you taken the Astrolapse, and now you're making these short films. That I mean, as long as I've known you've been doing the short films, but I figure that was probably a progression. So photography, Astrolapse, and now into the short films. What inspired you to start making the short films, and from there, what's kind of not only what inspired you to do them, but what continues to inspire you? Like, how did the ideas come to you? It's like, you know what, this is what I want to do. Is it only around the places that you visit, or is it just you have ideas and then you set a plan forward to do those? I'm really kind of interested in intrigued in your filmmaking style.
Thanks. Yeah, I guess it's different factors that kind of inspired me. The first one being, of course, you go on YouTube and you start Googling or searching for time lapse and how to make time lapse, and you find those gorgeous movies and now 4K resolution of not only night time lapses but also any kind of remote location like Patagonia
Mhm.
or like Africa. And when I saw that, I was just
Yeah,
it's just jaw dropping.
yeah.
And that for sure inspired me in the beginning, because you start getting those sequences, but you don't really know what to do. Do you share them on Facebook, or just
Hmm.
keep them for yourself? Or so I started actually my first movies. They weren't really. When I look back at them now, I'm like, oh, okay, that's what I made. But at the time, I'm still proud of what I was making. So you start putting those sequences together and trying to tell a story. and trying to put music in the background, and that comes to life. So that's actually what I liked about it. It's you tell a story, and for some people, it's actually, some people can take it as, I don't know, relaxation or storytelling, or like some kind of other vibes,
Mm-hmm.
and I've got massive positive feedback then, back at the time, and so that's what kept me going, actually.
And I love the fact that you're always on the road. One of the fun things about doing what I do is that I get to talk to some really intriguing, interesting individuals that do some amazing things. But because of that, it can be difficult. We've been working on this since like last fall. We've been talking about doing this interview,
True.
but you've been traveling so much. And can you tell us a little bit about where you've been and what you've been up to and how that all kind of came about? Because I believe you started like 4 new jobs, so you got a lot going on. So can you give us like a little bit of a basis of what 2018 has looked like for you? Because every time I look up, it seems like you're somewhere else, and that's saying something coming from me. I travel a lot.
Well, I always take things as they come to me, they come across. Actually, so I was a teacher in Denmark, as I finished my master's degree in Canada 6 years ago. Then became a teacher in Denmark, and then from there, I actually got contacted by Jason Remuller, the CEO of PoSSUM, and that's actually what got me into thinking I could, not necessarily like quit my job and that's it. I do only astrophotography. No, it actually inspired me to continue into, of course, photography, but also becoming a science communicator at PoSSUM, which I think we'll talk about later in the interview.
Yes, sir.
But and then from there, I also got contacted by this super nice guy on Facebook, Anders Hansen, that is the I guess the one of the owners of the Senya Aurora Borealis Observatory.
Yeah.
And he said to me he liked my work, and that he would be happy to collaborate if sometime I came by Norway. So I actually did, because I was planning a trip to Sweden, and that was just 3 hours away. So I said, okay, I need to plan a week there. And so I was out shooting in Sweden for a week, and then after that in Senja for a week, and we actually bonded really well, and they offered me a job there as an Aurora guide, which is absolutely awesome. And so I keep doing what I do, what I like the most, which is taking pictures, but also helping people there getting the Aurora, or getting them through the Aurora season. So that's I've been doing that, and also I've been to the Canary Island to shoot the night sky. I actually love those islands because I was there. I traveled there a couple of years back, actually, when I was in Denmark. But in another context, I was with chaperoning students, and then I knew the Milky Way was just gorgeous from there. So I decided to travel there on my own with my cameras only. And so I spent weeks in Tenerife and also La Palma, which are some of the best locations in the world to shoot the night sky. So yeah, a lot of traveling. Been to Canada as well to shoot the noctilucent clouds with Project PoSSUM. And a lot of traveling around Europe, Switzerland, France, of course, and Denmark, Germany. Yeah, lots of traveling.
And you mentioned Project PoSSUM, so it's something we can kind of go ahead and touch on. Is that it shows a different facet of what is capable out there. So it's a citizen scientist astronautics program that's studying the upper atmosphere, and the mesosphere in particular, or the noosphere, as Jason likes to call it. So that's an intriguing thing that you've been able to be involved in. You see astrophotography, and you talk about, well, how does astrophotography going to help me understand and shoot parts of the atmosphere that we don't understand? And it's actually something that you are uniquely qualified for, something that you that your talents can kind of help with, because it's something that one of the big reasons that it's an astronautics program is because planes fly too low and satellites are too high. So we need to have, those suborbital flights that are going to be able to help, but it's something that you kind of have the ability to help out with. Can you tell us a little bit, you mentioned that, Jason contacted you. What's your role in Project PoSSUM? What do you do with the program?
So now I'm a science communicator for the program. So EPO outreach, public outreach coordinator for the program, which I'm super happy about. So I shoot and produce the vlogs and the blogs, also some of the sizzle videos for the project, which is kind of cool because it's a world that I don't really know. The space world and the astronautics. So every time I'm with PoSSUM, I know I'm going to like it, and I know I'm going to interact with people that I don't know and that are super nice, and that I'm going to learn a lot from. So it's always a pleasure to work for Project PoSSUM. And what actually started the Jason noticing me, actually the reason for Jason contacted me on Facebook was that as I was in Denmark, one of those other subjects that I was shooting was noctilucent and clouds, because you can see them from Denmark actually quite clearly in the summer. So I shot those took many sequences of those noctilucent clouds and put them on the internet. And so one day Jason contacted me and said, "Hey, I just love the sequences, and I would be happy to collaborate on, on any projects that any ideas that you might have." And so that what started it. And I did the remote sensing NLC or airborne campaign last year in northern Alberta with Jason and the astronaut candidates, PoSSUM candidates, and that was a blast. We had a blast. I also had the opportunity to fly one of those nights and be the mission specialist. So I was actually recording from the plane with my own cameras, which is, I guess, one of any astrophotographer's dream.
Yeah, to be that high in the sky, just have that.
Yeah.
And guys, for those of you that don't know what Project PoSSUM is, do make sure to go back. In season 1, I did a full interview with Jason Mueller, the executive director of Project PoSSUM. I myself am involved in it. I've done a couple different things. That's how me and Adrian met. So definitely go back, check it, and make sure to check that out. I'll drop a link here so that way people can find it. But it's an incredible thing that you're getting to do, and you can tell that you enjoyed it and you love it. And just like anything else in the astrosciences, there's so much behind it that people don't realize. People always say, "Wow, your life looks amazing. You look incredible." It looks incredible what you do. And we talked to you, and we talked to Jason, and we talked to, like Uliana, who's also part of PoSSUM, but has her own business, Science in the Wild. And it looks glamorous, and it looks like it's this amazing life, but people don't realize the hardships that come along with it. The time that it takes, how consuming it is, the skills you have to learn. You put a lot in, travel. You got to find the right dark skies. You've got to know that you're in the right place at the right time. And you are in the generally Arctic conditions. So can you tell people about the difficulties of this job, the things that they don't see, the kind of the behind the scenes of what it is that it takes to do what you do on a professional level? Everybody's interested in maybe doing a little amateur astrophotography, but you take it to a whole different level.
Yeah, so it actually, it's a good point right there. And all the behind the scene of a 5-minute movie about the Arctic, for example, if we take that example, there's a huge phase of preparation, whether it's physical or even mental preparation. So just to let you know, to fill you in, I guess, on what was required to stay by sometimes minus 30 Celsius, so that's probably around minus 20 Fahrenheit, I think, between minus 10 and 20 all night long. So I had to take cold showers and cold ice baths to be able to have a bit of endurance in this cold conditions. So every day I would, 2 weeks prior, I would take those cold ice showers. to get used to, to get your body accustomed to those
Yep.
cold conditions.
Yeah. Trying to acclimate to it. I tried to do some of that
exactly.
when I went to Nepal. I'm like, all right, I'm going to be at 18,000 feet. I've never been that high. Well, outside of a plane, I was like, this is going to be freezing cold. I don't think I did enough. I really don't. And I like it cold, man. Yeah,
right.
Really, so,
I also have,
yeah.
I also have a lot of friends that don't necessarily do that, but I like to do it because also physically I like to work out and to to accustom my body to those hard conditions prior, because I think those conditions, man, they get really extreme. When you don't really feel your fingers anymore, and the cold is just biting in, and you have to stay outside to stay close to your cameras, and you have to make compromises and sacrifices, but you have to plan ahead and to get prepared for sure. So maybe a little bit about being patient. That's also a good point and important point. So sometimes you just stay for hours outside. So you just take your backpack, your cameras, your gear, something to eat, and of course your blankets and your layers, and you just hike a mountain, and you just stay there the whole night. So you have to be prepared for, of course, hard conditions, as I mentioned, but also you need to somehow find an occupation during that time. And for me, that's no problem, because I'm in love with the night sky, so I could stay for hours just contemplating, like just stargazing. But you got to be prepared to, you got to be super patient for sure. That's something, and maybe to wrap this thing up, I could say that you also have to make a lot of sacrifices in terms of resources, invest a lot of money. Of course, those things don't come easy and cheap. You have to spend money on the gear, good cameras, good lenses. Also on your health. It's an investment on your health, because a little example on Tenerife. 2 weeks ago, I was shooting from 5 p.m. to 7 a.m. and I would just sleep 3 to 4 hours per day. So I would sleep during the day, and then I had the 3-hour commute every day, and then shoot the rest of the time, plan scout the area the rest of the time. So and that for 9-10 days straight. So you got to be prepared, and you got to make concessions for sure.
And I don't think that's anything, things that most people don't consider. It's just, you've got to be healthy. You've got to be in peak condition for things like this, because people see it and like, oh, that's beautiful. But maybe you're not realizing that what you see, because the films are relatively short, they're 5 to 10 minutes, and you're like, oh, that's not that big of a deal. But to realize how much time it takes and how long you might have to wait for these things to happen, the right conditions to come up, the fact that you want to be in the darkest skies possible, those colors pop, and the sky is as stunning as it is. And some of that's editing, but some of that is you just got to be in the right place at the right time. And the right place and the right time might mean I need to hike 6 hours today, there and back, and then also sit there for 12 hours. That's an amazing amount of commitment. And I think it's something that a whole lot of people don't understand. And spending 10 days of 14 hours a day, just sitting outside. And what is cold conditions? And I mean, sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's a little colder than normal, like you mentioned. Negative 30 degrees Celsius is incredible, and something I don't think that a lot of people really appreciate, because everybody, on Facebook, they just click share. Oh, that's amazing, or it's I want to regram this, blah blah blah, and they're fascinated by it, but they don't see what you guys put into it. So I'm really that's really exciting to kind of hear the other side of it. And when people think about what it is that a lot of people do, say that we're talking about STEM, we're talking about people that are science, technology, engineering, mathematics. And then the newest term of it is STEAM. We're adding the arts into it, and it's something that you hear people say, oh, well, I work in the arts. Your art is a physical animal. Is what you do is something entirely different. So when you're talking about educating people in this, how do you kind of come about that? Like, it sounds like it's got to be something that's difficult for, oh, I want to do this. Well, I'm down to show you, but I hope you realize what you're asking, what you're getting yourself into. Astrophotography is, especially on a professional level, is something that's really that next level. So what comes into the educational side about showing people this is what you're going to have to be prepared for, this is the things you're going to need? How did you kind of get into that?
Well, that's an actual excellent question, because and as you mentioned, astrophotography is the good example, because you can't really see the night sky. Well, you can see the night sky with your eyes, but what the camera can pick up instead of your eyes is just tremendous. The camera is able to pick up much more light, much more colors than your eyes can. So that makes it a perfect subject to, to introduce it into science and education. And so for me, that fitted perfectly, because so both my parents were teachers and then turned into principals of schools. And I've always lived at a school, always been around teachers, always been around teaching. Matter of fact, I actually did some substituting for my parents' schools, and I was always in science teaching, also in Denmark, and finding innovative ways of teaching. Not those boring science periods. Where you sit around and then listen to the teacher. No, I really wanted to, to put in more visuals. I've always been about visual science because I've always been a person. I have a visual memory, so it's it was important. And astrophotography is just the perfect subject for that, because you can definitely take what you do, take your sequences, your film, and then put some steam or into it. And that became actually a subject of mine that I like. Teaching at my school in Denmark and also in France. So every once in a while I would show my movies and ask my students, hey, do you know this phenomenon? And do you know this star? Do you know this galaxy? The Milky Way moves. Why it moves like this? All those if you can manage to get the student to get hooked on a visual, that they're not used to seeing, then that's it. You've done at least half of the job. So it was important from day one for me to really put this educational attention to what I do. So that's why I'm producing, those educational videos. So putting, producing time lapse and adding some text and sharing it on social media, also on my website for people to see. It's completely free. And so, my motto was, and always has been, keep learning and keep teaching.
Yep. I agree. And I think that's a really kind of a great segue. So let's pick your brain just a little bit. We're going to do a couple more questions just to kind of go over the intriguing things that are out there that people can do. So let's go with kind of the first step. I want to get into this. This is something I want to do. What website should I go to maybe go pick up my first time camera? Do I need any other equipment outside of just, getting a good DSLR camera? Is there anything like that I need to get set up first? Like, what's the best way to set myself up for the first time amateur astrophotographer? I want to go out and just shoot something. Do I just need a cell phone? Should I just go try the moon first? Or, do I want to get like some actual equipment and then go from there? What's your recommendations in that end?
Well, I guess if you really wanted to start from scratch, I guess, phones, they do amazing things. I was just up in Senja Island in Norway, and some of the visitors that we had, some of the tourists that we had in Africa, they had tremendous phones. I think that was Samsung. The last Samsung, I think, takes amazing pictures. You can adjust the exposure time, which you couldn't do with the iPhone and couldn't do with the previous phones. And I'm just amazed at, what the phones can do now. So you can
actual
try
cameras. Yeah. I mean, they're cameras.
Right. They're definitely cameras into your phone. So I would recommend starting to play around a bit with it and start to learn a bit about exposure time, aperture, and ISO settings. Those three things, you know, are the pillars of astrophotography and photography in general.
Mhm.
You know, it's not just about putting your camera on auto mode and just shoot. No, astrophotographers definitely getting out of this auto mode and trying to learn the camera. So start playing around with your phone, but then I would definitely recommend, as I was saying earlier, to get started with, you know, not a high-end camera to start with. I think you should start with a decent DSLR. I think one of those Canon or Nikon cameras should do, you know, not the high-end, but, you know, the maybe middle-end cameras they should do, and those startup kits, you know. Of course, you can switch later, but I would definitely recommend as you start to, you know, first it's important that you should learn the camera. And yeah.
Okay, so say that we're sitting out there and I've got my new camera and I'm sitting out underneath the night sky for the first time. What do I do? You know, like like, you know, I know a lot of people are they're probably going to go out there. Maybe maybe they want to shoot the moon. They do something like that. Maybe they get a little impatient. Maybe they want to go in a little too soon. What's kind of your recommendations on how they get started for the first time? Should maybe we only go out for an hour the first time and kind of play around a little bit and then try to get to it? Because obviously you didn't go from, oh, I went and saw an Aurora Borealis to spending, you know, 14 hours, 10 days straight. So where should people start? What's a good amount of time to play around with it? You know, what are some objects outside of the moon that maybe they should be looking for, that kind of thing?
And, you know, they should start, you know, as soon as they see something in the sky, I don't know, like a bright star, they don't know what it is, and they, you know, they could start shooting it and see. That's actually, I didn't know that was Jupiter. You know, I was talking earlier about Jupiter. I did not know that was Jupiter because I didn't know that much about the night sky at the time. So I said, oh, okay, that's a bright star. Start shooting it, trying to get it in focus. It's a good exercise. And then it looked weird, you know, with those layers. And then, oh, okay, that's Jupiter. So I guess a good amount of time that people can start with is, I don't know, an hour, 2 hours. Maybe not too long outside to start with, because they, you know, they might get, you know, oh, I spent too much time and I don't really get good results. So just take it easy, go step by step, progressively. Start shooting the moon. You can start shooting the Milky Way. It's the Milky Way season in the northern hemisphere, also southern hemisphere. But yeah, you could start shooting the Milky Way, trying different settings, and see what you can do and what you can get on the computer afterwards.
Is there what's maybe the best way for people? So you might get people who have a lot of light pollution where they live. Do you have any recommendations for people finding like the best place for, you know, kind of getting started? Like, you don't need, you know, epic black skies, you know, they don't have to be, you know, dark, but how did you kind of start finding good spots for you to go and see really good skies that inspired you? Like, you probably didn't have to go very far from home, did you? Because you said you just went to the beach there. So
yeah, and you know, people can start in their backyard, and that's okay. But you know, little by little, I started realizing, okay, you know, I see those this yellow glow, and that doesn't look right. And how come, you know, some other people, they get super sharp and super bright Milky Ways, and mine is super washed out. And so I started digging around, and what I found was actually Denmark and most of Europe is bathed into this permanent light polluted area. You know, we have so many street lamps in Europe, and also in the United States around the cities. So I would definitely recommend, if you have the ability to do so, I would definitely recommend to get out of town, take your car, get out of town, try to find dark spots. You can, I think you can Google Dark Site Finder or the Light Pollution Map, and those indicate you where you can find those dark areas. And you don't need, as you mentioned, you don't need like super dark skies. You would typically go out of town, you drive an hour or two out of town, and try to avoid shooting, if you're shooting the Milky Way, try to avoid having your subject right above, the source of light pollution. So a big city, for example. So try shooting the other direction, or go around the city and shoot the other direction. So yeah, that's my recommendation.
And so finally, for a lot of people, you are watching these videos you do, and they're very inspirational, and they excite people. And I know even just resharing them on Stardom and different platforms, people are always talking about them. And they love them. And some of the, especially on Instagram, everybody they always get comments. So what are your words of inspiration to people that kind of want to follow in your footsteps and do what you do to get out there and give it a try on chasing a dream like this?
Well, it's all about observing what the others do. I think that was also a huge factor for me, trying to break down their process or processes and try to do what they do, get inspired without, copying their work. And also, I guess, as you mentioned, just get out there. It's really important, because most people, they would just stay in their backyards and they would never go outside and try different things, different settings, different setups, different foregrounds. So just grab a camera, whatever it is. It doesn't really matter at the start. Get out there, and also persistent. It's also, don't give up, because at the start you're going to have a lot of challenges, probably a lot of rewards for sure, but also a lot of challenges. You're going to deal with noise. You're going to deal with maybe some negative feedback. I did on Facebook, which also helped me grow. So keep at it, be persistent, don't give up, and get out there. And yeah, just look up and look at the sky. That's the thing.
And well, I know you're one of the big inspirations for me to go take this trip next year, because I really wanted to go see the Aurora Borealis, but seeing your work all the time has made me just it. You know what? I think I'm going to start saving for it. So this is going to be year-long planning for this trip, because of the things that you do. So man, I really can't wait to come see it, and I'm going to come bug you some night. So I'll go hiking and camping and live out in the freezing cold in this winter, and we'll come see you and do some stuff with you. So thank you so much, Adrian, for coming on today. Can you tell people where they can find you on the internet, social media, your website, Instagram, Facebook, all that fun stuff?
Yeah. So thank you so much, everyone, for watching our interview. You can definitely watch me, or you can actually find me, on my website. So www.adphotography-online.com. And also you can find me on all sorts of platforms. So Facebook, you can search for Adrian Mauduit Photography and Film. And also on Instagram, and with the same name, on Vimeo, YouTube, and also Twitter with the same name. So everything's linked, and everything will be linked also on my website. So you can find the platforms to follow me.
Same. And we're also going to drop all that information below in the comments. So just make sure that you check out the description of the video there, and you can go find all this stuff from Adrian. Adrian, thank you so much for coming on today. We appreciate it. I know that you're getting ready to head out of town again. Where are you going? You're going somewhere next week, right?
Yeah, but next weekend. So a friend, astrophotographer, actually told me he was on La Palma Island, which is one of the other Canary Islands. And we always wanted to do a collaboration, vlogging together. And so he invited me. And so I'm going there for a week again. So to shoot the Milky Way and, vlogging. And so I'm super pumped, super excited. So that's going to be awesome.
Fantastic. Well, everybody, make sure to check out his stuff. There's going to be some really cool videos and some cool stuff coming soon. I have no doubt whatsoever. Thank you so much, Adrian.
Thank you for having me.
And everybody, make sure you like and subscribe, and we will see you guys on the next episode.